It was late October when Emma first noticed the whispers. She had just moved into an old Victorian house on the outskirts of town, a place she'd inherited from her estranged aunt. The house was enormous, far too big for one person, but Emma loved its charm and history. Its creaky wooden floors, towering ceilings, and intricate stained glass windows felt like stepping back in time. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. Well, as normal as living alone in a century-old mansion could be. But then came the night that changed everything. Emma had been unpacking boxes in the study, a small, dimly lit room at the end of the hallway. It was past midnight, and the wind outside howled against the windows, rattling the glass panes. As she reached for a book on the bottom shelf, she heard it, a faint whisper. At first, she thought it was her imagination, or perhaps the sound of the wind creeping through cracks in the walls. But as she stood frozen, the whisper grew louder. "Help me." Her heart pounded in her chest. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice trembling. There was no answer, only silence. Shaking off the unease, Emma told herself it was nothing more than fatigue playing tricks on her mind. She finished unpacking and went to bed, trying to forget about the strange noise. But the whispers didn't stop. Over the next few nights, they became more frequent and clearer. They always came from the study, no matter where Emma was in the house. Sometimes they were soft and pleading, other times they were sharp and urgent. One phrase repeated itself over and over. "Find me." Desperate for answers, Emma began researching the house's history. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. Decades ago, the home had belonged to a reclusive doctor named Henry Caldwell, who was rumored to have conducted unethical experiments in his basement laboratory. Locals whispered about disappearances, patients who had gone missing after visiting him for treatment. Eventually, the townspeople turned against him, accusing him of foul play. He vanished shortly afterward, leaving behind an unsolved mystery. Emma couldn't shake the feeling that the whispers were connected to Caldwell's dark past. Determined to uncover the truth, she decided to explore the basement, a place she'd avoided since moving in. Armed with a flashlight and a deep breath, she descended the rickety staircase. The air grew colder with each step. The basement smelled of damp earth and mildew, and shadows danced eerily across the stone walls. In the far corner, she found what appeared to be remnants of a lab. Rusted surgical tools, broken glass vials, and stacks of yellowed papers scattered across a dusty table. As she sifted through the documents, one caught her eye. It was a journal entry written in faded ink. October 23rd, 1897. Subject 12 has proven resistant to all treatments. Her condition worsens by the day. I fear I may have pushed her beyond recovery. If anyone discovers what I've done, know I must continue. For science. Emma's hands trembled as she flipped through more pages. Patient notes, experimental procedures, and sketches of grotesque surgeries filled the journal. but one name appeared repeatedly. Clara. She gasped as realization dawned. Clara wasn't just any patient, she was Caldwell's daughter. According to the entries, he had subjected her to horrifying experiments in an attempt to cure her of an unknown illness. The last entry ended abruptly. Clara is gone. She locked herself in the study and refuses to come out. I can hear her crying through the door, but she won't let me in. I don't know what to do. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. Emma's flashlight flickered, casting erratic beams of light around the room. Behind her, the whispers returned, louder this time, overlapping voices that seemed to echo from every direction. Help me. Find me. Let me out. Panic surged through her veins. Dropping the journal, Emma bolted up the stairs and slammed the basement door shut. She locked it and backed away, her breath coming in ragged gasps. For a moment, the house was silent again, but the peace didn't last long. That evening, as Emma sat in the living room, she heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate steps that stopped directly above her head. Then came the sound of a door creaking open, the study door. Her blood ran cold. She hadn't been upstairs all night. Summoning every ounce of courage, she grabbed a kitchen knife and crept toward the staircase. Each step felt like walking into a nightmare. When she reached the second floor, the hallway was empty, but the study door stood ajar, though she was certain she'd closed it earlier. Peering inside, she saw something that made her scream. The walls were covered in writing, hundreds of tiny scrawls etched into the wallpaper. Over and over, the same message repeated. Help me find me, let me out. And in the center of the room, lying on the floor, was a single strand of blonde hair. Emma never stayed another night in that house. She sold it within weeks, refusing to speak of what happened except to warn potential buyers. To this day, locals claim you can still hear the whispers if you stand near the property on quiet nights. Some say it's Clara, trapped between worlds, begging for someone to set her free. Others believe it's Dr. Caldwell, watching from the shadows, waiting for his next subject.